All right, here we go. Hopefully everything's recording correctly after some technical difficulties. Welcome to Marketing 3150 Channel Management and Logistics Interface. The abbreviated version of this class. Should be interesting to see how this goes along. Uh, as the title of the class indicates, these are two separate areas that typically get talked about as though they are very, very distinct, which they are, but also that they're not really related, which is not true at all. In fact, there's a great deal of interface and overlap between channel management and logistics interface. So I like to use this drawing to represent the basic overview of how we're going to look at this. So we have the very broad marketing environment that we're going to be operating in. And then in the sort of orange or beigeish colored box of organizational control, on the left-hand side, you see there are four P's: price, product, promotion, and place. And then there's the slash, and to the right of that, indicating that place is the variable within the marketing mix that interfaces with the facilities which carry the inventory, conduct the order processing, and then are responsible for transportation to customers. So there's a great deal of activity that takes place between the logistics activities and the marketing channel. Together, these are used to provide a customer service strategy, which is composed, of course, of our customer satisfaction and dissatisfaction model based on customer expectations and their perception of the customer service. And so the transactions, particularly logistics transactions, can be measured, and they can also be evaluated on a customer service performance scale. So this is how we're going to look at these two somewhat disparate topics that, in my view, have a great deal of overlook. So if we start off with a very basic definitional situation, the marketing channels, the interdependent, excuse me, but in many cases, independent organizations involved in the process of taking a product or service to market and making it available for use or consumption. And the logistics channel is the activities that focus on getting the right amount of the right products to the right place at the right time at the lowest possible cost. So together we want to remember two different words related to this. First one is effectiveness, which ties back to the previous slide and the idea of customer service. So we want to define and describe and set up our marketing channel so that it is effective in terms of reaching our customers and what our customers want. But when we've got that defined, we are under no obligation to spend more money than necessary to actually deliver the products to them. So when we think about the logistics channel, we're thinking about we want to enhance and support the marketing strategy, the effectiveness part of it, but we want to do so at the lowest cost possible, which is the efficiency side of this. So when we start talking about this, the idea of effectiveness and efficiency, we want to keep them in that order. This is a representation of different ways that people look at the area of channel management and supply chain management. From my perspective, I don't get too hung up on the idea. I understand that the differences as far as what people want to do. That the supply chain management is technically a broader overview, tying together the supplier network and the marketing channel. And logistics management is looking more specifically at the actual movement of product. But for me, I don't care for our purposes, quite frankly. But if we look on the far left side, suppliers providing inbound flow of raw materials and products or parts to the producer, that's the supplier network. We are not interested in that part of the supply chain at this point. We are interested in the producer to the consumers, and as indicated there, that's part of the marketing channel. So it's the outbound flow of finished products that are going to be desired by the end consumer. Could also be services, but we tend not to look at logistics with services quite so much. So a very basic question is, why do channels evolve? And I'd like to use a series of drawings to illustrate this, because oftentimes in a principles of marketing textbook, you will find that there is a statement in there about marketing channels evolve because they facilitate the search process and they result in fewer contracts, and it's a more efficient process. And then they go on their way talking about other topics. And I find that kind of an unsatisfactory way to look at this. So if we can pull up the whiteboard here, we're going to take a look here at this idea that I've just been talking about. So if we start off with this idea that in a very rudimentary economy, we have 4 producers. And there is no central market at this time. So we've got our 4 producers, A, B, C, and D. And A and B are 3 miles away from each other, as are C and D. And A and C are 4 miles apart, as are B and D. And then through our use of the Pythagorean theorem, we can draw these in, and we know that these are going to be 5 miles each way. So what we can do then at this point is we can say, from a pure productivity standpoint or investment of time and energy, we can say that we've got A and B. A round trip for A to go to B is going to take 6 miles. For A to go to C is going to be a round trip of 8 miles. And for A to go to D is going to be a round trip of 10 miles. Now, everybody has to trade with each other. That's one of the stipulations of this situation. So now we're going to have B trading with C, and B to C is going to be 10 miles. B to D is going to be 8 miles. And C to D is going to be 6 miles. So after we have all of those, everybody is traded with each other. So if we add this up, we have 14, 24, 34, 48 miles total. So in order for everybody to trade with each other and get their goods, there has to be involvement of 48 miles of transportation taking place. So now we want to do the case of what happens if we put in a central market. So now we're going to have the central market here, and now A is here, B is here, C is here, and D is here, and this is still 3 miles, 4 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles. And now these distances are 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, and 2.5. So now, instead of everybody having to travel to each of these locations, they can all come to the central market. So each of them is going to have a round trip of 5 miles. There's 4 producers times 5. So we're going to have a total of 20 miles because of the central market. Now what that means is we now have a cost savings, because instead of having to do 48 miles, we only have to do 20. So it should be quite apparent then the advantage of a central market in this kind of situation. Now, one thing that doesn't really get discussed when you do it this way, however, is remember when A was going to B originally, A only had to have transportation big enough to take their products to satisfy B, and then in return be able to carry B's products back to wherever they were going. Now when A comes to central market, they have to bring enough product for B, C, and D, and they also have to take B, C, and D's products back. So they need larger transportation. And this is where specialization starts to occur in the marketplace now. Now imagine if this is a permanent central market and a specialized channel participant emerges, which is the transportation entity, because A, B, C, and D are good at producing. They're not specialists in moving product. They're good at producing their own little product. So now, if the permanent market has taken place, we don't all have to come together at the same time. We can do it when it's most convenient for us. And if necessary, we can also introduce specialized channel members, such as transportation, that invest in the equipment to be able to carry the larger amounts and bring things in. And now, with a permanent central market, we can start to bring in the concept of inventory being available for people to come in, which when we talk about spatial and temporal utility, this is the temporal utility activity, whereas A, B, C, or D can come to the central market when they want to. So from a timing standpoint, when it's best for them or most convenient for their schedules, they can come there knowing they will be able to get the products. So this is the idea behind when we say that central markets evolve and they provide efficiencies in the marketplace. Okay, we seem to have lost me here. All right. Okay. I believe I shouldn't have been hitting that with the pen, is I think what's the problem. All right, so now we want to go back to our presentation, if we can here. Oh dear. And let's try to figure out now what seems to be the situation, why all of a sudden I can't bring that up. All right, looks like we're back online now with this. Pardon the interruption. I'm sure there's going to be more of those as we go along in this abbreviated semester. Get this in. Okay, so we're back here looking at why channels evolve, and we've given you the illustration of that. So the benefits of this, of course, is it facilitates the search processes. It allows us to sort the process. So with the central market, we can sort the products, routinization of transactions, and fewer contacts. So there's added value and reduced costs in the marketplace. Now, when we talk about marketing channels, we frequently talk about utilities. And we talk about spatial utility, temporal utility, which are fancy names for place and time utility. And we talk about possession utility. And in a minute, we'll talk about form utility. But the first three utilities are the ones that are usually associated with the idea of marketing channels. So spatial utility, having the product where people can get to it easily enough. Temporal utility, we've already talked about in terms of the central market, when people want to get it. And possession utility, the idea that you can take the product and do whatever it is you want to do with it once it's yours because you own it. Now, occasionally a marketing channel will also provide form utility. Form utility is usually associated with manufacturing. But if you take the idea of a postponement strategy, whereby you might have Hewlett Packard, for example, for their printers, they will have the base module, and then they will snap on and add parts to it to make different models. So you have these different kits that you can basically put together, and this gives it form utility. So if you do this at a forward positioned warehouse, uh, you can say that the marketing channel is possibly providing form utility. Another example would be, what if you do a promotion with trading cards and some sports ball, so a soccer ball with soccer cards, and they shrink wrap these together at the warehouse in the marketing channel and then deliver to the retailer. So you can sometimes find form utility being provided by marketing channels as well. Now, when we look at channels and their functions, if you look on the left-hand side here, you'll see that we have uh, 9 universal channel functions. So we have physical possession, ownership, promotion, negotiation, financing, risking, ordering, payment, and information sharing. And the arrows are designed to show that the flow of the information or the product. So for example, physical possession typically flows from the producers to the wholesalers, to the retailers, to the customers. We're not going to actually get involved with the idea of reverse logistics right now, but you can argue that you could have product flowing back up the channel. So the arrows designate for each of the universal channel functions what is it that is taking place. So if you look at something like financing, well, producers and wholesalers, if they give them terms of sale that allow them to finance their products, well, they're involved in the financing. Same with negotiation. They're going to negotiate terms of sale. Promotion, though, on the other hand, is usually directed down the channel. So with these universal channel functions, we can see that they take place. They will have differing levels of importance depending on the channel, depending on where we are talking about, uh, what party is involved with them. We may also, on occasion, hear me refer to producers, wholesalers, and retailers as the uh, primary channel participants. So we want to keep that in mind. And so here we are. The primary channel participants are our manufacturer, wholesaler, and retailer. Note that the text uses manufacturers, intermediaries, and end users. It doesn't really matter. I think it's just simpler to refer to manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers, and consumers. So our primary channel members are those that take inventory risk. That is the primary feature that distinguishes them. They own the product. Now, specialized channel members are involved in the marketing channel, and they provide specialized services. So for example, our arrows shown in this drawing would represent transportation. Transportation is a specialized channel intermediary. An ad agency would be a specialized channel intermediary. A bank providing financing for the production of the goods would be a specialized channel intermediary. So there's all kinds of specialized channel intermediaries that help support the channel, and they are subject to what I call performance risk. They have offered their services for a certain amount of payment, and in exchange, they are expected to perform certain types of activities. Whereas the primary channel members have taken ownership risk in the form of inventory. And as you go down the channel from manufacturer to retailer, as a percent of their asset base, inventory becomes more and more important as you go down the channel. So if you think about a manufacturer and they own plant and equipment, the plant and equipment is usually very, very expensive. So yes, they have raw materials, they have semi-finished materials, they have finished goods, but those in relative to their total asset base means that inventory is a smaller percentage. Whereas when you go to the wholesaler level, you're talking about wholesalers own a building for distribution purposes. Yes, they'll have computer programs and information technology, etc. They'll have some material handling equipment. But by and large, what they are doing is they are moving inventory, storing and moving inventory. And consequently, their asset base is heavily involved with inventory. And then when you get to retailers, yes, you have your retail store, but what's a retail store full of? It's full of inventory. So retailers typically have the highest asset base on a percentage basis. And not surprisingly, that's why a lot of the innovations in inventory management have come out of the retail sector, because they're the ones that have the most invested. So here's a depiction of how we can think about channels. So on our far left is a single channel: manufacturer, wholesaler, retailer, consumer. Moving to the right, we have a multi-channel. So the same manufacturer has a traditional channel, but they also have an online one where they will ship directly to the customer. Now, this particular, in a multi-channel, when we're talking about this, it's characterized by little integration between the marketing channels themselves. In fact, they may often be in open competition with each other. And it often also leads to channel conflict, which we'll be talking about later in the semester, because they are now competing with the wholesalers and retailers in their other channel. And then you have what has evolved in the last few years into the idea of the omni-channel, which is you still have what we've seen in a multi-channel, except now there's extensive integration between these marketing channels. So there's a lot of connectivity, there's cross-channel shopping. People have changed their shopping behavior. There's different services attached to this. There's targeted promotions and customer insights because of the information technology and how much we know about individuals. So with the omni-channel approach, these are not competitive. There's a great deal of integration between the channels that the manufacturer has started to run. Now, when we think about this and think about our universal channel functions, remember a basic adage of the marketing channel and logistics arenas is that you can eliminate the middleman or you can eliminate the channel intermediary, but you typically cannot eliminate the function. And what that means is that if you're going to do this, you are going to have somebody else. If you take the wholesaler out, the manufacturer and the retailer are going to have to pick up some of those functions. And I often joke that that's why I typically will not use the self-checkout at Giant Eagle across the street from campus, because of the fact that I have now assumed some of the channel function, and yet they aren't giving me a discount. If they would pay me to do that, I would do it more readily. All right, to finish up, in class is a bit of a misnomer, but what I want everybody to do is to conceptualize an entire supply chain for the manufacture and sale of blue jeans from the very beginning, from the cotton, raw material, etc. I want you to put that together, and by the time we get together on Wednesday, have that ready to share on screen with the class. We'll see if we can work that out. All right, that's it for right now.